Well, really fascinating. And now we're going to sort of engage with that theme from a different perspective from Tayla Shanaye from the Californian Institute of Integral Studies, who's going to talk about disruption, reclamation, and delight, a Black mother's childbirth as liberatory transpersonal consciousness. So over to you, Tayla.
Hi, everyone. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm Tayla Shanaye. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a mother of two. I'm a somatic coach and educator, as well as an adjunct lecturer for the California Institute of Integral Studies and a facilitator for the Nature Connection School, Weaving Earth. I identify as biculturally Black and queer. And today I'm presenting my doctoral research that I completed last year. That's still giving me lots of life. With that very long and exciting title, Disruption, Reclamation, and Delight. And I just want to name before I actually dive into this that my second birth experience happened tomorrow 2 years ago. And so I'm actually like in the kind of portal place of celebrating my birthing day of my second child tomorrow. And so, yeah, just wanting to be in the honoring of the cyclical nature of that and the sensitivity that it's bringing to me, as I'm in the recognition that today was the last day that I will ever be pregnant. That happened, and that's 2 years ago. So the anniversary of my last day as a pregnant body. So thanks for letting me name that. I'll go ahead and get my slide up here. So today I'm presenting my research, which is the study, a study in the examination of childbirth as a site of culture creation. And I explore the theory that natural childbirth is an expanded state of consciousness and suggest that in a supportive setting, a birthing person may experience forms of personal transformation that result in healing from white supremacist ideologies, patriarchal ideologies, and anthropocentric ideologies. So to do this, the research first presents a kind of understanding of the context of childbirth and the development of childbirth as we experience it as a cultural practice here in the United States currently. I then engage in a theoretical comparative analysis of the existing literature to position childbirth as an expanded state of consciousness. Through my research, I develop a qualitative research methodology, which I call critical organic autoethnography, which is a synthesis of critical autoethnography and the feminist transpersonal approach of organic inquiry. And I utilize this hybridized methodology to analyze my first childbirth experience as a bicultural Black person birthing into a white rural setting in northern Michigan to illustrate the theory and demonstrate the transformative potential of childbirth. I explore the birthing state of consciousness and reveal themes that are emergent, and my research utilizes multiple approaches in order to highlight the complexly intersectional realities inherent in the biological act of giving birth. I anchor this in my first childbirth experience, which went on for 41 weeks and 4 days. And then I went into labor for the first time, and I labored for approximately 40 hours total. I had a late emergency transfer from my home to the hospital after 32 hours. My child was actually born in the hospital, though I had the intention of birthing them at home. But during that birth experience, I entered what I named as an intensely altered state of consciousness in which I heard voices, had visions, experienced profound alterations, and transmuted existing perceptions of myself. And in the multiple shifts in my consciousness, they were vivid and all-consuming, transpersonal and transformative. And I came to face to face with really unseen realms and unshakable, humbling forces of nature. And in coming through that experience, I felt that childbirth was pretty psychedelic, and I wanted to understand more about that reality. Excuse me. I have the room until 3.
Oh, okay. So you said it wasn't received.
Oh yeah, I have it until 3. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm in a public space. So just coming back to kind of what was named there, right? We are experiencing this just in the last presentation, right? We're backgrounded by the maternal health care crisis and really trying to understand how we are experiencing this really racially stratified maternal mortality and morbidity and its direct impacts on how people choose to give birth and those outcomes. and really understanding the ways that that impacts people, not just in mortality, but also in morbidity with the mental health crisis. And in 2002, Joanne Goldberg was able to link adverse medical birth experiences with postpartum depression. In 2004, Cheryl Titano-Beck was able to link routine medical birth with experiences of postpartum PTSD. And so in an effort to resacralize childbirth as a practice of culture production, my research was really guided by a handful of questions, like, can natural childbirth be considered an expanded state of consciousness? And if so, what are some of the key aspects of that? And how does our cultural context impact that experience, and what transformation is possible? So I take a really winding, long approach to my research. I first and foremost uplift some of this context, really looking at how we've gotten to the current medical design and model and practice and cultural practice. I look at midwifery as a Black women's tradition and the emergence of obstetrics as a branch of white supremacy and patriarchy. I uplift the home birth and natural birth movement anchored here in the United States in the 1960s, and the way that technological influences and the biomedical natural divide influence that. I explore how people conceive of spirituality within hospitals and inside the birth and inside the home, as well as the way that trauma and postpartum PTSD show up, and the way that trauma has influenced the larger culture here in the United States. From there, I try to develop the theory that childbirth is an expanded, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, an expanded state of consciousness. So to do this, I use a theoretical comparative analysis process with the expanded state of consciousness elicited through entheogens, which has a robust field of research currently in its renaissance, to argue that birthing people may enter what would be considered an expanded state of consciousness during natural childbirth. And then I highlight parallels found in the existing transpersonal research of childbirth to position childbirth as a relevant and unique psychospiritual state worthy of our attention. And I chose entheogens specifically because both experiences are immediate and time-bound. Both the natural childbirth movement and the psychedelics renaissance, as we experience them or can reflect on them here, have modern roots in the counterculture of the 1960s, but are actually ancient indigenous traditions in which a shaman and or a midwife knew how to guide people into the spiritual dance between the worlds. And that those practitioners, the shaman and the midwife, have historically experienced state-sanctioned violence and eradication from Black and Indigenous communities and the larger community as a whole under the guise of medicalization and professionalism. And through that, I then am able to kind of highlight the parallels found. And I am able to highlight that through entheogens and through the childbirth experience, there are changes in time, space, and perception that can lead to thematic transpersonal experiences of deeper connections with nature, the divine, and expanded sense of self. I then develop a critical autoethnography that uses my personal experience to highlight how I may have had this direct experience and this direct connection with these different transformative themes. So I'll just highlight a handful of the findings through my own experience of some of these transformative themes that emerged through the mechanisms of changes in time, space, and perception in my consciousness during childbirth. So the first is a deepened sense of connection with the divine through the access to various presences that provided guidance, instruction, and encouragement throughout the birth process, with the two main sub-themes that supported this being a change in perception, where I had the involuntary auditory guidance and reflection from an unknown and unseeable presence. I also experienced changes in perception and space, where I was involuntarily visualizing and feeling transported into liminal locations in different places that other than where my body actually was. I felt a deeper sense of connection to nature. This came through a sense of belonging with others, both human and more than human, that give birth on a regular basis as an aspect of life on this particular planet. So that came through a change in perception and in space, where I had involuntary visualizations of various animals giving birth, wild animals giving birth. I also had changes in perception in space with the involuntary visualization and feeling transported to places of major Earth events, such as earthquakes, volcanoes, and hurricanes erupting, feeling as though that was happening also through me, the same life force moving through me. And then through that, an expanded sense of self became evident through these experiences of that connection with the divine in nature. And these connections revealed a transformed sense of self through a change in perception, which was the immediate and undeniable sense of interconnection and belonging with all life producing elements and participants on this planet, as well as a change in perception through the redefinition of what kinship might be, not only with the child I was birthing, but through those more than human lives and that sense of interconnection with all. And because I was transferred to the hospital, I also had a direct interaction with some of the transformative themes that were emergent through what Robbie Davis Floyd calls the technocratic model, and what I was underscoring as some of the cultural practices of medicalized birth, with the first being the influence of the white male gaze. As I was transferred to the hospital, I went from an attending midwife and my partner to a white delivering doctor, older delivering doctor, in the presence of this white male obstetric doctor, and undeniably influenced my awareness and inverted the ways I had engaged with the transpersonal realms, including a change in perception and time, where I had the dual awareness as a patient in the hospital, as well as that force of nature that was needing to now be controlled via the white male gaze. I had a change again in the perception of time, feeling the influence of the sense of external control over my birth experience, and influencing my resolve to give birth with the introduction of a clock between my legs. And I also had a change in perception in time, where I actually was at some points feeling as though I had disappeared into what I've been calling the void, or a no place between life and death. And then the final theme that presented itself as part of the influence on this transpersonal space in interlocking with the medical system was the role of fear. And fear actually appeared in the birthing space once I was shifted into the hospital. And that impact on my consciousness was a change of perception in time, and the energetic of the support team that I was engaging with, a change in time with the ability to remain control of my birthing body with multiple checks and timelines before I would be taken into surgery, and a change in space, again, entering that void or the bardo and the lingering and a no place between birth and death. So in alignment with the organic inquiry process, transformation of the research participants, and the reader audience is key function to this kind of organic inquiry research, and therefore the only true marking of validity, according to Jennifer Clement's study, has transformative validity when it succeeds in affecting the individual reader through identification with and change of her or his prevailing story, probably in areas of spirit, self, and service. So I shared 3 examples in this research of the integrative practices that I would categorize under this organic inquiry umbrella of transformative change. Transformation of spirit has manifested through an ongoing commitment to ancestral healing practices, specifically with my Black lineages and the departed, through the ritual unforgetting of familial Black dead. I have also experienced the transformative change towards service, which has manifested through a commitment to Donna Haraway's notion of odd kid making, and the remembering of myself as an ecological being to the more than human world, and dedicated multi-species reproductive justice. And transformative change in the category of self has manifested through a personal commitment to a more empowered and embodied sexuality, and embracing the creative impulse inherent in my femininity and femaleness. And each of these bucks the systemic dominance that seeks to forget the Black dead, dislocate humans from the embeddedness in nature, especially through the privileging of that what Davis Floyd calls the technocratic approach to birth and the demonization and sterilization of the maternal, of sexuality, both which serve to reinforce patriarchal definitions of feminine on the female body, and kind of going back into that kind of idea of the white Madonna. So in the end, the autoethnographic account of my first childbirth experience highlights how childbirth consciousness deepened my connection with the divine nature and expanded sense of self, all of which influenced my beliefs and behaviors to support a felt sense of healing from the white supremacist, patriarchal, and anthropocentric belief systems that I was birthing inside of. The presented findings open the door for further research into the role of profound healing as an aspect of personal and potentially social liberation for systemic dominance. And like more well-studied expanded states of consciousness, childbirth catalyzed transformative change above and beyond the transition into motherhood. These transformative changes are multiple, complex, and interwoven with the lived experience of spirituality, nature, and self. This account, alongside with the existing literature and theoretical analysis, positions childbirth as an extraordinary state of consciousness with significant implications for creating, maintaining, or transmuting cultural norms by empowering those who birth to act in accordance with their sense of autonomy and power. Finally, the research exemplifies how set and setting of a childbirth experience directly influences the birthing person's ability to access mystical awareness and can thus support or impede healing experiences. By leveraging my first childbirth experience as a bicultural Black mother in the United States, this dissertation synthesizes the impact of racialized reproduction and the experience of childbirth consciousness to communicate the nuanced and complex reality of modern childbearing. I have attempted to speak to the spiritual, cultural, social, personal realities that in many ways collide during childbirth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tayla.